Consumer preferences are evolving, and the pork industry must evolve with them. That means taking risks and creating a long-term strategy, reinforcing why pork deserves a place on every plate. Millennial and Gen Z consumers are a focus of the National Pork Board, and research has shown they view pork differently than generations before. Welcome to Feedstuffs in Focus, our podcast taking a look at the big issues affecting the livestock, poultry, grain, and animal feed industries. I'm your host, Sarah Muirhead. This episode of Feedstuffs in Focus is sponsored by United Animal Health, a leader in animal health and nutrition. You can learn more about United Animal Health and how they're working to advance animal science worldwide by visiting their website at unitedanh.com. Joining our Ann Hess to discuss the evolving consumer for pork are Sarah Showalter, Director of Consumer and Business Insights, and Neal Hull, Director of Domestic Market Development for the National Pork Board.
So, Sarah, let's kick off the conversation with you today. Briefly explain why data and insights are crucial when allocating funds to building consumer demand.
Yeah, thanks, Ann, for the question. We know that consumers' preferences are ever evolving. And at the National Pork Board today, we have the deepest understanding of business intelligence of our consumers that we've ever had. And so we really need to lean on those insights to understand how we can better meet the needs of consumers. The business intelligence that we have helps us really provide a 360-degree view into the consumer. We know things like what they're buying, what they're saying, what they're hearing, what they're searching for online, and then really getting to their hearts and minds of what they're thinking and what they're feeling. And so by using those insights, we can not only see what they've done in the past, so look in the rearview mirror and see what they've bought and the choices that they've made, but it really helps us think about and anticipate where they may go and how we can really better meet the needs of the things that they may want in the future. And so utilizing those insights really helps us develop more of a consumer-centric plan and helps us put pork in a position where we can be relevant to consumers and really be a solution for the things that they're choosing to do day in day.
Yeah, and speaking of that consumer-centric plan, Neal, how has National Pork Board used this data and the insights to develop a new brand campaign, which I believe is launching here very soon?
The data and insights and this engine that we've created around understanding the consumer is the foundation that everything has been built upon. So it was critically important to know, as Sarah said, who they are, where they shop, how they eat. So we really did, through this consumer segmentation, we identified 7 consumer segments. We're going to focus on 3 of those with the new campaign. We also talk a lot about knowing where the consumer is. A third of the U.S. population is in 4 states. If you think about California, Texas, Florida, and New York, that's really where the bulk of the population is. And sometimes those high population areas aren't necessarily high pig production areas. So we're not as relevant in those markets. So if you think about those states, but then think about markets like Los Angeles, New York, Miami, even Chicago, right? There's just a lot of people in a tight area. And the goal is to make pork relevant to them and really focus in on taste and flavor. Because there are 3 motivations that really drive consumers. It's taste and flavor, it's nutrition, and it's convenience. But the common thread across all of our segments was flavor. And that's why the new campaign, Taste What Pork Can Do, is so critical as we launch this new consumer effort.
So, Sarah, how do millennial and Gen Z consumers perceive pork? Is that taste and flavor still a part of that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is relevant across generations, but especially relevant with our younger consumers. And as we dove deep into the intelligence that we have across the generations, we found that our younger consumers are not thinking about pork the same as our older consumers. Our older consumers think about pork more as center of a plate. They'll go and buy a particular cut, and then they'll serve it with a couple side dishes. Where our younger consumers are thinking about pork more as It's a recipe they want to make and try. It's an ingredient. And a lot of times, especially with the younger consumers, it's something that is more culturally inspired. So things that are inspired by Asian cuisine or Hispanic cuisine are some of their favorites. Dishes like potstickers, tonkatsu, pork stir fry, carnitas, all things that they know and love, but they're just thinking about pork in a different way. And they're approaching the pork portfolio differently than our older consumers maybe have in the past. Also, as we think about shopping the meat case, those consumers are really looking for smaller cuts. They're not necessarily looking for the big cuts of pork because they frankly don't really know what to do with them or how to cook them. So we're evolving to really meet those consumer needs and think about how they're approaching pork in a way that it's more of that ingredient and in the recipes that they know and love. Another way that consumers are changing how they approach pork, especially with those younger consumers, is the how. So if you think about an appliance like an air fryer, it's something that really started to be in Americans' homes in 2019. And then we saw it just explode through the COVID pandemic. And interestingly, now today, there are more air fryers in American households than there are coffee makers. And not only are there air fryers in their kitchens, but they're sitting on the countertop, and they're things that consumers are going to day after day to meet those meal solutions. Air fryers also deliver on those things that we know are table stakes to consumers, like taste and flavor. They like the texture that it delivers when it comes out of the air fryer. It's convenient, it's versatile, it's also a healthier way to cook. And so by having pork as a solution and meeting the needs in the way that they're preparing the food that they have today, I think there's a huge opportunity for the entire portfolio of pork to be able to lean into those younger generations and show them the possibilities. And taste and flavor is really the gateway to get them excited about our pork product portfolio.
I still can't get over that stat there that there's more air fryers in homes than coffee makers. But, I'm sure there's a lot of new education there on how to use air fryers as well with pork, and different recipes to share too. So Neal, how is this campaign going to shift pork from a special occasion to more of an everyday occasion?
Well, I think historically we've kind of been known as that special occasion, that family get together, that holiday meal, whether it be Easter or Christmas or Thanksgiving. And really we're transitioning away from that. And as Sarah mentioned, right, it's really this idea of pork as an ingredient. I've said in meetings with a lot of producers, we've built an industry that's very efficient, right? We're efficient raising pigs on farm. We're efficient getting products through the plants and in boxes. And then we push product out into the marketplace. And really what we're trying to do is create that pull strategy for the industry. If you walk a retail store today, the meat case looks similar than it did, 10, 15 years ago. We still see family packs of chops. We still see whole pork shoulder. And to Sarah's point, a younger consumer doesn't look at a pork shoulder or a pork butt in the meat case and know what to do with it. But if all of a sudden you flip that and say pulled pork sandwiches or carnitas, then that resonates more with that younger consumer. So that's really where the mindset shift is. And it's all about focusing on the food. Older generations, think older Gen X and boomers today, are still our core consumer, and they're still critically important to the category. We're not moving away from a focus on them, but it's really about how do you educate and inspire that younger consumer that's going to come into the category. The other thing that's different this time is we're really taking a whole hog approach. I mean, I joined the board 7 years ago. We focused on fresh. And I think for the entire history of the pork checkoff, we focused on fresh cuts. And we're going to shift that mindset. Because if you talk to younger consumers today, they will say, I don't eat pork, but then they're like, ooh, but I love ribs, or I love pepperoni that's on my pizza, or I love sausage. So it's this idea of how can we leverage that affinity for flavor? Think about charcuterie trays and how popular those are with, younger consumers today. And then how do we really use pork to sell more pork, right? How do we take that affinity for those processed cuts and then transition them over into the fresh case? Now, it does take a mindset change from the offering, the merchandising and the case. But I think as we've gone out and talked to retailers about this new campaign, people are excited. I mean, they are excited to see the shift in the mindset and how we're really going to take pork into the next generation. I want to say this is a long-term strategy. This isn't something that May we launch and in June we say, hey, we accomplished the goals. This is really how are we going to set up pork for success over the next 5-10 years.
Yeah, I was going to say that long-term strategy, I'm sure it also must play into some cultural cuisines there as well. Would you say that's correct?
That is absolutely correct. I mean, Sarah mentioned it just briefly, but if you think about Hispanic consumers or African-American consumers or Asian consumers, there's a cultural relevance there for pork. We're still the number one consumed protein globally. And here in the US, we fall short of that. So the goal is, how do you bring those culturally relevant events and family get-togethers and make sure we remind people that pork is part of that? I mean, we are going to take an ownable position on flavor because that's what we own. I mean, people have a love affinity with bacon, right? So how do we then transition that across? I mean, you wrap bacon around a pork tenderloin and it's great, or you wrap bacon around a ribeye chop and it's great. So we're really going to leverage that affinity that people have for flavor on the process side and transition that into those authentic cuisines.
Sarah, I'm thinking of flavor. I'm thinking summer grilling is coming soon. How's National Pork Board positioning the product with consumers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know I am excited here as the weather's turning nicer to get out and fire up the grill or the smoker. And not only for those special occasions with family and friend get-togethers, but also those everyday occasions of having a quick, healthy meal that I can provide my family. And so I think the timing is terrific for us to launch this campaign and meet the needs of the consumers. As Neal mentioned, we're really leaning on the intelligence that we gain through our Consumer Connect segmentation. And some of the segments that we are going out and specifically talking to here with the launch, alignment with grilling is just spot on to the needs that they have. Our confident meat eaters are those consumers that love meat. They're the grill masters. They love, throwing something on the grill and entertaining and kind of showing the creation that they've had. And then we've got our culinary adventures, which are all about exploration and versatility and really trying to, try new things and really amplify that taste and flavor through the things that they're creating. And so I think by launching the campaign with grilling season, it really highlights some of the great opportunities in our portfolio, whether it's chops or ribs or sausage, and really elevates those things that we know are most important to the consumer, being taste and flavor, versatility, and nutrition. And from a consumer perspective, we also know that grilling is something that consumers get excited about this time of year. It's in a lot of households. Consumers have expertise and confidence in grilling, but it also gives them an opportunity for exploration and to really lean into that versatility and amplify that taste and flavor. Same goes for the smoker. It really is a way to amplify that taste and to bring consumers together, to really lean into the pork portfolio. And we also saw that smokers really grew in consumer usage and adoption post-COVID. So there are more and more households than they ever were before. And so I think by launching the campaign timed with grilling season, it really gives us an opportunity to tell consumers that we're unapologetic about pork. We really can amplify our entire portfolio from the bacon and the sausage cuts to the fresh cuts that deliver well with those needs. And it really highlights the awesome taste and flavor that the pork portfolio can deliver to meet their needs and meet them where they are.
Yeah, I was going to say you're meeting them where they are on various different skill levels there when you talk about all the different summer grilling options and the different kinds of consumers there are when it comes to pork. So as we wrap up our discussion here today, any key takeaways, final thoughts to leave our audience? Neal, I'll start with you.
Well, I think the key takeaway for me is there's excitement building for pork. I've said many times there's almost like the groundswell behind this new campaign, because really it's a call to action for the consumer, right? Taste what pork can do, right? And it's critical that pork is part of that discussion, because if it just tastes what it can do, what is it? So we're really leaning in and owning the position on pork. It hits on taste and flavor, versatility. We've talked about that. Sarah mentioned this idea of smokers, and what smokers to me allows is this new cuts to come in. If you think about how pork belly has been popular of late, there's some different things. I've seen braided pork loin. So the key segments, like if you think about culinary adventurers or confident meat eaters, it gives them a canvas to explore with when they're in the backyard with the smoker with family and friends. So it's an exciting time for the industry. We're excited to get this thing off the ground in May, but it's really just the beginning.
Yeah, to build on what Neal said, I think there's a lot of excitement about this, and rightfully so. I'm really personally excited to get this out in the market and to really showcase all of the possibilities with pork and amplifying that taste and flavor. Neal also mentioned earlier, this is really a long-term play, and we're building on the deepest base of insights that we've ever had as an industry. And we're able to know what consumers want and what the needs are that they have, and think about how pork can meet those needs in many ways. And so with that long-term play, I think really moving from that center of the plate to more of a recipe ingredient option into those recipes and those things that consumers already love today, but they might not know that pork is a part of that. There's a huge opportunity to go out and really amplify that with consumers. And I'm very excited for it to get on into market. And I think grilling season is such an awesome opportunity here to really showcase that. Again, we're unapologetic about pork. We're a versatile protein, and it's all about taste and flavor.
Very good. Sarah Showalter and Neal Hull with the National Pork Board. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insight.
This episode of Feedstuffs in Focus has been sponsored by United Animal Health, a leader in animal health and nutrition. You can learn more about United Animal Health and how they're working to advance animal science worldwide by visiting their website at unitedanh.com. I'm Sarah Muirhead, and you've been listening to Feedstuffs in Focus. If you would like to hear more conversations about some of the big issues affecting the livestock, poultry, grain, and animal feed industries, subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast channel. Until next time, have a great day, and thank you for listening.